The weight of this new understanding crushed Clara. The dissonance in the chamber grew louder, a chilling vision of a world teetering on the brink. She had shattered a fragile balance, not just for Rome, but for the entire world. But amidst the despair, a flicker of defiance sparked within her. This wasn't the end. They, or at least those who remained loyal, had to find a way to contain the Devourer, to bind it back to the mortal plane, even if it meant sacrificing her own life. With a newfound resolve, Clara scanned the chamber, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Perhaps there was something here, a forgotten ritual, a hidden symbol that could be used against the entity she had unleashed. But as her eyes darted across the hostile faces, a new wave of terror washed over her. The remaining hooded figures, their eyes burning with a fanatic light, strained against the High Priest's weakening magic. Their murmurs, once a chorus of dissent, now morphed into a single chilling chant. "Free the Devourer! Let chaos reign!" The High Priest's face contorted in a grimace of exertion. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple, leaving a glistening trail in the dim light. His voice, when he finally spoke, was raspy with desperation. "Find a way, child. You've broken the chains. Now you must mend them, or we all face the consequences." Clara's gaze darted back to the hooded figures, their chanting growing louder, more insistent. Panic gnawed at the edges of her resolve. They wouldn't hesitate to tear her limb from limb if it meant appeasing the Devourer. The flickering hope that had ignited within her moments ago sputtered and died. This wasn't a battle she could fight. This wasn't a sacrifice she could make. The only way out was to find a way to undo what she'd done, and fast. But with the hooded figures growing more agitated and the High Priest's magic failing, Clara knew her time was running out. Trapped in a chamber filled with escalating hostility and the promise of a world consumed by chaos, a primal fear gripped her. She wasn't a hero, she was just a girl, and for the first time she truly understood the gravity of her mistake. The chanting swelled into a deafening roar, the remaining hooded figures straining against their magical bonds with inhuman strength. The High Priest, his face contorted in a mask of terror, roared a final incantation. The air crackled with raw power, but it wasn't enough. With a sickening snap, the magic tethered to the figures shattered. A collective scream ripped through the chamber, a sound laced with a feral hunger that sent shivers down Clara's spine. The figures surged forward, a wave of roiling darkness that engulfed the High Priest in an instant. His desperate scream was cut short, replaced by a sickening squelch of flesh and a wet, rasping sound that made Clara want to vomit. Through a gap in the writhing mass, she glimpsed a bone-white hand jutting out at an unnatural angle, the fingers still twitching. Her stomach lurched. They weren't just tearing him apart, they were devouring him with a ravenous hunger, their ragged breaths misting the air with the metallic tang of blood. A single glowing eye locked onto hers from the writhing mass. It pulsed with a malevolent intelligence, a hunger that transcended the physical. In that moment, Clara understood. They weren't just freed from the ritual, they were thralls to the Devourer now, extensions of its insatiable hunger. The tide of bodies receded, revealing a scene from a nightmare. The High Priest was gone. Nothing but a glistening red pulp clinging to the floor, his entrails strewn across the cold stone like grotesque party streamers. The hooded figures, their eyes glowing with an eerie light, turned towards Clara. Their mouths, stretched into grotesque smiles that revealed rows of sharpened teeth stained crimson, spoke in unison. Their voices, a chilling chorus, echoed in the chamber. "You unleashed us. Now, you feed the hunger." Clara stumbled back, knocking over a heavy bronze candelabrum. The clatter of metal on stone seemed insignificant in the face of the oncoming horror. Panic choked her, stealing her breath and clouding her vision. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. With a single unified snarl, the figures lunged. The first one reached her in a blur of motion, its skeletal hands tearing at her clothes. Clara screamed, a primal sound of terror lost in the cacophony of the chamber. She clawed at the grasping hands, feeling the wet tear of flesh and the sickening crunch of bone as she broke one of the figure's fingers. But there were too many. Another set of hands seized her arms, digging razor-sharp nails into her skin. A third figure sank its teeth into her shoulder, the pain a white-hot explosion that sent her vision swimming. They tore at her flesh with a horrifying efficiency. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was a single glowing eye gazing down at her, its hunger momentarily sated, but far from extinguished. The Devourer's hunger had been unleashed, and a world consumed by chaos was doomed to be its endless feast.